The dust was thick in the air that afternoon in Montana Territory. It was 1885 and the small town square was packed with people. Men in worn hats stood around talking while women whispered behind their hands. Everyone had come for the same reason, though most wouldn't admit it out loud. There was going to be an auction today, but it wasn't for cattle or horses. James Caldwell sat on his horse at the edge of the crowd. He was a tall man with weather-beaten skin from years of working under the sun. His ranch was one of the biggest in the territory, sprawling across thousands of acres of grassland. He had money, land, and respect. But his house was empty and had been for 5 long years. He told himself he came to town just to pick up supplies. That's what he told his ranch hands too, but deep down he knew the truth. Loneliness does strange things to a man. It makes him go places he wouldn't normally go, and consider things he never thought he would. The auctioneer was a short man with a loud voice. He stood on a wooden platform, sweating through his shirt despite the cool autumn air. Behind him stood a line of women, maybe a dozen in all. Some looked down at their feet. Others stared blankly ahead, their eyes empty of hope. These were women with nowhere else to go. No family, no money, no options left. The auction was their last chance at survival, even if it meant belonging to a stranger. James felt sick watching it. This wasn't right, treating people like property. But out here, far from the fancy cities back east, different rules applied. Or maybe there were no rules at all. One by one, the women were presented. The auctioneer would say a few words about each one. Can cook, good with children, quiet and obedient. The men in the crowd would call out their bids, and just like that, a life would change hands for a few dollars. Then she stepped forward, and everything shifted. The girl couldn't have been more than 22 or 23. Her dress was dirty and torn at the hem, her dark hair tangled and wild. But it was her eyes that caught James's attention. While the other women looked defeated, her eyes blazed with something fierce and untamed. She didn't look down. Instead, she stared straight at the crowd, her jaw set, as if daring any man to try and claim her. The auctioneer cleared his throat nervously. "This here is Lily Hayes," he announced. "Now, I'll be honest with you, gentlemen. She's been through this twice before. Both times she was returned within a month. The men who bought her said she was too wild, too stubborn. Wouldn't cook, wouldn't clean, wouldn't do what she was told. Some men in the crowd laughed. Others shook their heads and turned away. Clearly, this girl was trouble, and nobody wanted trouble, but James couldn't look away. There was something about the way she stood there, refusing to be broken. It reminded him of the wild mustangs that roamed his land, beautiful and free, fighting against anything that tried to cage them. The bidding started low. A rancher named Pete offered $15, more as a joke than a serious bid. Another man offered $20, then laughed and withdrew it. The girl's face remained stone cold, showing no emotion, but James could see her hands balled into fists at her sides. He didn't know what came over him. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the way she reminded him that some spirits shouldn't be broken, or maybe he just couldn't stand to see her humiliated anymore. $100, James heard himself say. The crowd went silent. Men turned to stare at him. $100 was more than most of them made in 3 months. It was an insane amount for a bride auction, especially for a girl nobody else wanted. The auctioneer's eyes went wide. "Did you say 100, Mr. Caldwell?" "That's right. Going once, going twice." The auctioneer looked around, but no one else spoke. "Sold to James Caldwell." James climbed down from his horse and made his way through the crowd. He could feel everyone watching him, probably thinking he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. He paid the auctioneer, who handed him a piece of paper. Just like that, this girl's life was legally tied to his. He turned to face her. Up close, he could see she was trembling slightly, though whether from fear or anger he couldn't tell. Her eyes met his, and there was no gratitude there, only suspicion and rage. "I'm James," he said quietly so only she could hear. "I have a ranch about 3 days' ride from here. I won't hurt you, I promise you that." She didn't respond, just kept staring at him with those fierce eyes. "Do you have anything you need to collect?" he asked. "I don't have anything," she said. Her voice was rough, like she hadn't used it much lately. "Never have," James nodded slowly. "All right then. We should get moving. We'll camp tonight and reach the ranch in a few days." He started walking toward his horse, then realized she wasn't following. He turned back. She stood rooted to the spot, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I won't run," she said suddenly. But don't expect me to be grateful. And don't expect me to be what those other men wanted. I'd rather die. James met her gaze steadily. I'm not those other men, he said. And I'm not expecting anything. Just come along and we'll figure the rest out. Something flickered in her eyes, too quick to catch. Then she walked past him toward the horse, her head held high despite everything. As James helped her onto the horse and climbed up behind her, he wondered what he'd just done. He'd spent a small fortune on a girl who clearly hated him, who'd been returned twice before, who everyone said was impossible to live with. But as they rode out of town, leaving the whispers and stares behind, James felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Not happiness exactly, but something close to it. A sense that maybe, just maybe, his empty house wouldn't feel quite so empty anymore. The girl sat stiff in front of him, careful not to touch him more than necessary. The 3-day journey ahead would be interesting, that was for certain. He'd bought a wild girl no man could tame. But looking at the set of her shoulders and the way she scanned the horizon like she was already planning her escape, James realized something important. He didn't want to tame her at all. The first day of travel was the longest day of James's life, and he'd lived through some pretty tough times. Lily sat in front of him on the horse, her back straight as a board, making sure not a single inch of her touched him more than absolutely necessary. She didn't say a word, not one. When he tried to make conversation, asking simple questions about where she was from or if she was comfortable, she either ignored him completely or gave him a look that could freeze water in summer. By the time the sun started setting, painting the sky orange and pink, James's jaw hurt from the tension. He'd never been good with silence. On the ranch, there was always noise. Cattle lowing, horses neighing, his men laughing and talking. This quiet was different. It was heavy, like a storm cloud hanging over them. He found a spot near a small creek to make camp. The area was surrounded by cottonwood trees, and the sound of running water was peaceful. At least that's what James thought. Lily slid off the horse the moment it stopped, putting distance between them immediately. I'll get a fire going, James said, climbing down. There's dried meat and beans in the saddlebag if you're hungry. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked to the edge of the creek and sat down on a rock, staring at the water like he didn't exist. James sighed and got to work. He'd camped out hundreds of times. Building a fire was second nature. Soon he had flames crackling and a pot of beans warming up. The smell of food filled the air and his stomach rumbled. He hadn't eaten since breakfast. Food's ready, he called out. Lily turned her head slightly, acknowledging she'd heard but didn't move. James filled a tin plate and walked over to her, holding it out. You need to eat something, he said gently. She looked at the plate, then at him. For a moment he thought she might throw it in his face. But hunger won out. She snatched the plate from his hands and turned away, eating quickly like she was worried he might take it back. James returned to the fire and filled his own plate. He ate in silence, occasionally glancing over at her. She'd finished her food and was now just sitting there, arms wrapped around herself. The temperature was dropping fast the way it does in Montana once the sun goes down. It gets cold out here at night, James said. There's blankets in my bedroll. You can have them. I don't need your blankets, she said, the first words she'd spoken since leaving town. Suit yourself, James replied, though he made a mental note to leave them near her anyway. As darkness fell completely, the only light came from their fire. James laid out his bedroll on one side of the camp. He pulled out the extra blankets and walked them over to where Lily had claimed her spot. At least 20 feet away from him. Just in case you change your mind, he said, setting them down near her. She didn't look at him, but he saw her jaw tighten. James returned to his side of camp and lay down, using his saddle as a pillow. He stared up at the stars, millions of them scattered across the black sky. Out here, away from town lights, you could see the whole universe. It usually made him feel peaceful. Tonight, he just felt tired and confused about what he'd gotten himself into. He must have dozed off because he woke up suddenly to a sound. His hand went instinctively to his rifle, but then he realized what it was. Lily was shivering. The temperature had dropped even more, and she was curled up on the hard ground, arms wrapped tight around herself, too stubborn to reach for the blankets he'd left just a few feet away. James sat up slowly. Lily, he called softly, just take the blankets. There's no shame in being cold. Leave me alone, her voice came back, shaky from the cold. James rubbed his face. This woman was going to be the death of him. He grabbed his own blanket and walked over to her. Before she could protest, he draped it over her shoulders. She jumped up immediately, letting the blanket fall. "Don't touch me." "I wasn't touching you," James said, keeping his voice calm. "I was giving you a blanket." "There's a difference. I don't want anything from you." Her voice cracked. "You think because you paid money you own me? You think I owe you something?" "No," James said firmly. "I don't think I own you and you don't owe me anything. But I also don't want you to freeze to death out here. That wouldn't do either of us any good." They stood there in the darkness, the fire casting strange shadows on their faces. Lily was breathing hard, her fists clenched at her sides. She looked like she was ready to fight, run, or both. "Listen," James said, softer now. "I know you don't trust me. I know you've probably got every reason not to. But I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just trying to get us both home in one piece. That's all." "Home," she repeated bitterly. "Your home, not mine. I don't have a home." "Fair enough," James acknowledged. "But it's where we're going. And I'd prefer if you arrived there alive and not sick from cold." He picked up the blanket and held it out to her. "Just take it, please." Something in his tone must have gotten through because after a long moment she snatched the blanket from his hands. She didn't thank him, just wrapped it around herself and sat back down, turning her back to him. James returned to his bedroll and lay down again. He was cold now without his blanket, but he'd been through worse. At least she was warm. The second day was much like the first. Silent riding, Lily keeping herself as separate from him as physically possible while sharing a horse. They stopped briefly at midday to rest the horse and eat some jerky. Lily disappeared into some bushes, probably to take care of personal needs, and James made sure to look the other way and give her privacy. When she came back, he noticed she'd tried to comb through her tangled hair with her fingers. It hadn't worked very well, but the effort was there. Maybe she was starting to relax even just a tiny bit. "There's a comb in the saddlebag," he offered. "If you want it." She hesitated, then nodded once. He handed it to her and she moved away to work on her hair. James busied himself checking the horses' shoes and refilling their water canteens from a stream. That night, when they made camp, Lily actually took the blankets when he offered them. She still didn't talk to him, but it was progress. On the third day, something changed. They were riding through a valley when Lily suddenly tensed. "What is it?" James asked. "Riders," she said quietly. Behind us, James turned in the saddle. Sure enough, there were two men on horses in the distance, and they were coming up fast. James's hand went to his rifle. "Hold on," he told Lily, and urged their horse into a faster pace. The riders gained on them. James could see them more clearly now. Rough-looking men, the kind who caused trouble. His ranch wasn't far now, maybe another hour's ride, but these men would catch them before that. He pulled the horse to a stop and slid off, helping Lily down. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. For once, she listened. The two men rode up and stopped a few yards away. The bigger one, with a scar across his cheek, grinned unpleasantly. "That's a mighty fine horse you got there, friend," Scarface said. "And an interesting travel companion." "I'm not your friend," James replied calmly. "And we're not interested in conversation. Move along." "Now that's not very friendly," the second man said. He was thinner but had mean eyes. "Maybe the lady wants better company." James raised his rifle slightly, not quite pointing it at them, but the message was clear. "The lady is with me. Last chance to ride away." The scarred man's grin faded. He saw how James held the rifle, how steady his hands were. This wasn't some city man who'd panic. This was someone who knew how to use that weapon. "We don't want trouble," Scarface said, though his tone said otherwise. "Then ride on," James said. The two men exchanged glances. Finally, the scarred one spat on the ground and turned his horse around. "Come on, ain't worth it." They rode off, disappearing over a hill. James kept his rifle ready until they were completely gone. Then he let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He turned to check on Lily and was surprised by what he saw. She wasn't scared. She was holding a rock in her hand, gripped tight, ready to use it as a weapon if needed. Her eyes were alert, not frightened. "You can put that down now," he said gently. "They're gone." She looked at the rock in her hand, then slowly set it down. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did." "Why?" She looked at him, genuine confusion on her face. "I'm nothing to you," James met her eyes. "That's not true. And even if it were, No one deserves to be bothered by men like that. For the first time since he'd met her, Lily's expression softened just a little bit. It was barely noticeable, but it was there, a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. They didn't talk about it as they rode the last stretch to the ranch. But that night, when they finally saw the lights of his property in the distance, Lily spoke without him asking first. "Thank you," she said quietly. For earlier, it was just 2 words, but to James they meant everything. The wild girl was starting to trust him, even if only a little. And that was enough for now. The ranch house stood at the end of a long dirt road, surrounded by rolling grasslands that seemed to go on forever. It was bigger than Lily expected. 2 stories with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Behind it were several barns, a stable, and other buildings she couldn't identify in the darkness. As they rode up, 3 men emerged from one of the barns. Ranch hands, Lily guessed. They stopped working and stared as James helped her down from the horse. "Boys, this is Lily," James said simply. "She'll be staying here. Treat her with respect." The men nodded, though Lily could see the questions in their eyes. She was sure they'd heard about the auction. Everyone in Montana Territory had probably heard about it by now. The crazy rich rancher who paid a fortune for the wild girl nobody wanted. "Tommy, take care of the horse," James continued. "We've been riding hard for 3 days." A young man, barely 20, rushed forward to take the reins. He gave Lily a shy smile, which she didn't return. James led her toward the house. The porch steps creaked under their weight. He opened the front door and gestured for her to enter first. Lily hesitated on the threshold, then stepped inside. The interior was simple but comfortable. Wooden floors, solid furniture, a large fireplace dominating one wall. Everything was neat and organized, but there was a layer of dust on some surfaces. This was a house that hadn't seen a woman's touch in a long time. "Kitchen's through there," James pointed. "There's 2 bedrooms upstairs. You can have the one on the right. It's got a lock on the inside of the door." Lily's eyes shot to him. A lock on the inside. He was telling her she could lock him out. That she'd be safe. "I'll show you around properly tomorrow," James said. "You must be exhausted. There's a wash basin upstairs and clean water in the pitcher. I'll bring up some clothes that might fit you. He paused. "They belonged to my wife. She passed 5 years ago." "I'm sorry," Lily said automatically, then looked surprised that the words had come out. James nodded. "Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." He went upstairs and Lily heard him moving around, then his footsteps coming back down. He handed her a bundle of clothes. "These should work." "Good night, Lily." "Good night," she replied quietly. She climbed the stairs slowly, taking in everything. The house was silent except for the creaking of old wood settling. She found the room on the right and went inside. It was a nice room. A real bed with a thick mattress, not a hard floor or a pile of straw. Clean white curtains on the window. A dresser and a small chair. And yes, there on the door, a metal lock. Lily set down the clothes and walked to the bed. She touched the quilt, feeling the soft fabric. When was the last time she'd slept in a real bed? Years. Maybe 10 years, back when her mother was still alive. She locked the door and quickly changed into the nightgown James had given her. It was too big, but it was clean and soft. Then she climbed into the bed and pulled the quilt up to her chin. The bed was so comfortable it almost hurt. Her body, used to hard surfaces and cold ground, didn't know what to do with such softness, but exhaustion won out and soon she was asleep. She woke up to bright sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of roosters crowing. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then it all came back. The auction. The journey. The ranch. Lily got up and looked out the window. The view took her breath away. Green pastures stretched as far as she could see, dotted with cattle. In the distance, mountains rose up against a brilliant blue sky. She'd never seen anything so beautiful. There was a knock on her door. "Lily, you awake?" "I've got breakfast ready." She unlocked the door and opened it a crack. James stood there looking tired. "Morning," he said. "Come down when you're ready." Lily got dressed in the clothes he'd provided. A simple brown dress that was too long and had to be rolled at the waist. But it was clean and whole without any tears. She went downstairs and found the kitchen. James was at the stove cooking eggs and bacon. The smell made her stomach growl loudly. "Sit down," he said, not looking at her. "Food's almost done." Lily sat at the wooden table. She watched him cook, surprised that a rich rancher would make his own breakfast. Where she came from, men didn't cook. That was women's work. He served her a plate piled high with food, then sat across from her with his own. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was good, simple but good. So, James said finally, setting down his fork, we should probably talk about expectations. Lily's stomach clenched. Here it comes, she thought. The rules, the demands, the list of chores and duties she'd be expected to perform. I know what you're thinking, James continued, but I'm not going to give you a list of orders. I'm not going to force you to cook or clean or do anything you don't want to do. Lily looked up, confused. Then what do you want from me? Honestly, I don't know yet, James admitted. I didn't exactly think this through. I saw you on that platform and I couldn't let them keep humiliating you. So you bought me out of pity? Lily's voice turned cold. No, James said firmly. Not pity. Recognition, maybe. You reminded me of the wild horses on this land, beautiful and free, fighting against anyone trying to cage them. I respect that. Lily didn't know what to say. No one had ever talked to her like this before. Here's what I'm thinking, James went on. This ranch has plenty of work and I've got hands to do most of it. But the house could use some attention. And I'm terrible at cooking anything that's not basic trail food. If you want to help with those things, great. If not, that's fine too. You're free to spend your time however you want. Free, Lily repeated skeptically. I'm not free. You paid money for me. You own me legally. Legally, maybe, James said. But I'm not interested in owning people. Consider this more like a partnership. You help around the ranch if you want to, and in return you get a safe place to live, food, and whatever else you need. And if I don't want to help? Lily challenged. What then? James shrugged. Then you don't. Though I imagine you'll get bored pretty quickly with nothing to do. This was not what Lily expected. She'd been returned twice before by men who wanted a servant, a cook, and someone to warm their bed. Men who got angry when she refused, who tried to force her into submission. James was nothing like them, which made him more dangerous in a way. Because she didn't know how to handle kindness. The first week passed in an awkward dance. Lily spent most of her time exploring the property, avoiding James and his ranch hands. She did not cook. She did not clean. She did not do any of the things a wife was supposed to do. James said nothing about it. He cooked his own meals and offered her a plate each time. He cleaned the house himself on Sunday. He never complained, never demanded anything from her. His ranch hands weren't so understanding. She heard them talking one day when they didn't know she was nearby. Boss has gone soft, one said. Paid all that money for a wife who won't even cook him a decent meal. She just wanders around all day like she owns the place, another added. If I'd spent that kind of money, I'd expect something in return. Maybe he's scared of her, a third laughed. They did say she was wild. Lily walked away before they could see her, but their words stung more than she wanted to admit. She found herself spending more and more time in the stables. The horses didn't judge her. They didn't expect anything from her. They just were. There was one horse in particular that caught her attention. A beautiful black mare with white socks and a white star on her forehead. But there was something wrong. The mare stayed in the back corner of her stall, ears pinned back, not letting anyone near. That's Midnight, a voice said behind her. Lily turned to find Tame, the young ranch hand who'd taken care of their horse that first night. She's been like that for months, Tame continued, ever since she got spooked by a rattlesnake. Nearly trampled one of the guys. Mr. James says she's too dangerous now, might have to put her down. Put her down? Lily felt anger rise in her chest. Just because she's scared? Tommy shrugged sadly. Can't have a horse nobody can get near. It's not safe. After he left, Lily stayed by the stall. She looked at Midnight and the mare looked back. In those dark eyes, Lily saw herself. Scared, angry, lashing out at anyone who tried to get close. I know how you feel, Lily whispered to the horse. Everyone thinks you're broken. Everyone wants to give up on you. The mare's ears flickered forward slightly, listening. From that day on, Lily spent hours at Midnight's stall. She didn't try to touch the horse. She just sat nearby and talked. She told the mare things she'd never told anyone. About her mother dying. About her father selling her like cattle. About the two men who'd bought her before and tried to break her spirit. Midnight listened. And slowly, very slowly, the mare started to relax. Her ears stayed forward more. She stopped pressing herself into the corner. One evening, 2 weeks after arriving at the ranch, Lily was sitting by Midnight's stall when James appeared. "Tommy told me you've been spending time with her," he said. "Is that a problem?" Lily asked defensively. "No," James said. "Actually, it's amazing. She's calmer than I've seen her in months." He paused. "You have a gift with horses." "I understand them," Lily said simply. "They're honest. They don't pretend to be something they're not." James nodded slowly. "Unlike people." "Unlike people," Lily agreed. They stood there in comfortable silence for a moment. Then James said, "I need to move a herd of wild horses off the—" The next morning, Lily woke up before dawn. She got dressed quickly and headed down to the kitchen, surprising herself with her own eagerness. James was already there packing supplies into leather saddlebags. "Morning," he said, looking equally surprised to see her up so early. "Thought I'd have to wake you." "I'm not much of a sleeper," Lily admitted. It was true. Years of sleeping in unsafe places had trained her to wake at the smallest sound. "Coffee?" James offered, gesturing to the pot on the stove. Lily nodded and poured herself a cup. The hot liquid was bitter and strong, exactly what she needed. They ate a quick breakfast of bread and leftover bacon, then headed out to the stables. Tommy had already prepared 2 horses. James's big chestnut stallion and a smaller brown mare for Lily. As Lily approached, the mare nickered softly. "This is Honey," James said. "She's gentle but smart. She'll take good care of you." Lily reached out and stroked Honey's nose. The mare leaned into her touch, and Lily felt something warm bloom in her chest. When was the last time anything had welcomed her touch? They rode north as the sun painted the sky pink and gold. The air was crisp and clean, smelling of grass and sage. Lily found herself relaxing in the saddle, enjoying the rhythm of the horse beneath her. "The wild herd has been on the northern pasture for about 3 weeks," James explained as they rode. "There's a lead stallion, dark gray, big fellow. Maybe 15 or 20 horses in total. My men have tried to push them out twice, but they keep coming back. Maybe they have nowhere else to go," Lily said quietly. James glanced at her. "That's what I thought too. There's good water up there and the grass is rich. But my cattle need that land. I can't afford to lose grazing space. So where will the horses go?" "There's a valley about 10 miles east," James said. "Good water, plenty of grass, and I don't run cattle there. If we can lead the herd that direction, everyone wins." They rode for another hour before they spotted the horses. The herd was grazing peacefully near a stream, the morning sun making their coats shine. Lily pulled Honey to a stop, just watching them. The gray stallion James had mentioned stood slightly apart from the others, his head high, watching his herd. He was magnificent. Powerful muscles rippled under his coat, and there was intelligence in his eyes. "He's beautiful," Lily breathed. "He's also stubborn as hell," James said, but there was respect in his voice. "He's the key. If we can convince him to move, the rest will follow." They spent the first day just observing. James wanted to understand the herd's patterns, where they grazed, when they drank, how they moved together. Lily watched too, but she was seeing something different. She saw the relationships within the herd. The young colts playing together. The mares watching over foals. The stallion constantly alert, ready to protect his family. That night they made camp near the stream, far enough from the herd not to spook them, but close enough to keep watch. James built a fire and they ate beans and dried meat, sitting on opposite sides of the flames. "You're good at this," James said suddenly. "At what?" "Being still, watching. Most people want to rush in and do something, but you understand the value of patience." Lily poked at the fire with a stick. "When you have no power, patience is all you have. You wait, you watch, you learn, then maybe you survive." There was silence for a moment. Then James said, "Is that how you survived? With those other men who bought you?" Lily tensed. "I don't want to talk about that." "Fair enough," James said easily. "But just so you know, you can talk about it, if you ever want to." Lily looked at him across the fire. His face was honest, open. No demands, no pressure. Just an offer. The first one, she found herself saying, surprising herself. He wanted a servant, someone to cook and clean and never talk back. When I refused, he locked me in a room for 3 days with no food. Said he'd break my spirit. What happened? I broke his favorite chair and used the leg to smash the window. Climbed out and walked 20 miles back to town. A small, fierce smile crossed her face. He didn't come after me. And the second one? Lily's smile faded. He was worse. He thought he could beat me into submission. He was wrong. She touched her side unconsciously where a scar ran along her ribs. I fought back. Nearly killed him with a frying pan. His brothers brought me back to town and told everyone I was crazy. James was quiet for a long time. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "I'm sorry that happened to you. And I'm sorry that system exists at all. It's not right." "But you participated in it," Lily pointed out. "You bought me." "I did," James admitted. "And I've been thinking about that a lot. The truth is, I knew if I didn't buy you, someone worse would have. But that's just an excuse, isn't it? I still played the game. So why did you really do it?" Lily asked. James stared into the fire. 5 years ago, I had everything. A wife I loved, a baby daughter. Then influenza came through the territory. Took them both in less than a week. His voice cracked slightly. "This house, this ranch, it's all empty without them. I thought maybe, I don't know what I thought, that I could fill the emptiness, I guess." "You can't fill emptiness with another person," Lily said softly. "Believe me, I know. You're right," James agreed. "But maybe we can help each other be less empty. Not by filling the holes, but by understanding them." Lily didn't know how to respond to that, so she stayed silent. But something had shifted between them. The wall she'd built wasn't gone, but there was a crack in it now. The next 3 days followed the same pattern. They watched the herd during the day, learning their habits. At night, they sat by the fire and talked. Small things at first. James told her about growing up on a farm in Missouri, coming west to make his fortune. Lily told him about her mother, who'd taught her about horses and wild things before dying when Lily was 12. On the 4th day, they started working with the herd. The key, Lily had explained, was to think like the horses. They didn't want to be driven. They wanted to choose their own path. So instead of pushing them, James and Lily created a path worth following. They started by riding slowly toward the eastern edge of where the herd grazed. Not threatening, just present. The gray stallion noticed immediately, moving between them and his herd. But when James and Lily didn't approach further, just turned and rode toward the east, he watched with curiosity. The next day, they did the same thing. And the next, always moving in the direction they wanted the herd to go, but never forcing it. Showing, not telling. Lily also started leaving grain near the stream at the eastern edge. Not much, just enough to be interesting. The younger horses found it first and started venturing that way. Where the young ones went, the mares followed. The stallion held out the longest. He was suspicious of anything new, anything that smelled like a trap. But Lily was patient. She'd sit near the grain pile, not moving, barely breathing, letting the stallion see that she was no threat. On the 7th day, the stallion finally approached. He came slowly, head high, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. Lily stayed perfectly still. The stallion sniffed the grain, then looked directly at her. They locked eyes, and Lily felt something pass between them. An understanding. She was asking him to trust her, and he was deciding whether he could. Finally, the stallion lowered his head and ate some of the grain. Then he trotted back to his herd, tossing his head. The message was clear. It's safe. That was incredible, James whispered from where he'd been watching. I've never seen anything like that. He's a good leader, Lily said. He just needed to know we respected that. Over the next few days, they slowly moved the grain piles farther east. The herd followed, grazing their way toward the valley James had mentioned. It was slow work, requiring patience and careful attention. But it was working. On the 10th day, the herd crossed into the valley. There was good grass there, sweet water, and plenty of space. The horses settled in immediately, the foals playing, the mares grazing contentedly. The gray stallion stood on a rise, surveying his new territory. He looked back once toward where Lily and James sat on their horses, watching from a distance. Then he tossed his mane and went to join his herd. We did it, James said, grinning. We actually did it. Lily smiled, really smiled for the first time since James had met her. They're free, she said. They're in a new place, but they chose to come here. They're still free. James looked at her and she looked back. Something had changed during these days together. The suspicion was gone. The anger had faded. In its place was something neither of them quite knew how to name yet. You held up your end of the deal, James said, which means I hold up mine. You're free, Lily, completely free. You can leave whenever you want, go wherever you want. Lily was quiet for a long moment. What if I don't want to leave? James's breath caught. Then you don't have to. But I need to know, Lily continued, her voice strong, that I'm staying because I choose to. Not because I'm owned. Not because I'm trapped. Because I choose it. Always your choice, James promised. Every single day. They rode back to the ranch together as the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Lily felt lighter than she had in years. Maybe freedom wasn't about being alone. Maybe it was about choosing who you wanted to be with. And for the first time in her life, she'd made a choice that was truly hers. She was choosing to stay, at least for now, and that made all the difference. After returning from working with the wild horses, something shifted in Lily. She no longer avoided James or spent all her time hiding in the stables. Instead, she started appearing in the kitchen in the mornings, making coffee alongside him. She'd wander into the barn where he was working and ask questions about the ranch, about the cattle, about his life. They fell into an easy rhythm. Not like husband and wife, but something else. Friends, maybe. Partners learning to trust each other. One evening, about 2 weeks after moving the herd, James was fixing a broken fence post when Lily approached carrying 2 tin cups of coffee. Thought you might want this, she said, handing him one. Thanks. James took a long sip, then went back to hammering. Lily sat on a nearby fence rail, watching him work. The silence between them was comfortable now, not awkward like it used to be. Can I ask you something? Lily said finally. Sure, your wife. What was she like? James stopped hammering. He'd mentioned her before, but never really talked about her. Catherine, he said softly. Her name was Catherine. He sat down on the grass, wiping sweat from his forehead. She was gentle, kind, always seeing the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. Did you love her very much? I did, James said. Still do, I suppose. You don't stop loving someone just because they're gone. Lily was quiet for a moment. Is that why you're so patient with me? Because I remind you of her? No, James said firmly, looking at her. You're nothing like Catherine. She was soft where you're fierce. She accepted things where you fight back. I'm patient with you because you deserve patience. Because I see how hard you're trying to trust again, and I respect that. Lily felt something warm in her chest. I am trying, she admitted. It's just hard. Every time I start to feel safe, my mind reminds me of all the times safety was just an illusion. I understand, James said. After Catherine and little Beth died, I couldn't let anyone close. It was easier to be alone than risk that kind of pain again. He looked at her. But being alone isn't really living, is it? No, Lily agreed quietly. It's just surviving. As the days passed, they started sharing more. Not just surface things, but real truths. One night, sitting by the fireplace after dinner, Lily told him about her childhood. My mother was the best person I ever knew, Lily said, staring into the flames. She worked as a seamstress and we didn't have much money. But she made everything feel like an adventure. We'd go walking in the woods and she'd teach me about plants and animals. She knew how to talk to horses, how to calm them down when they were scared. Sounds like where you got your gift, James observed. Yeah, Lily smiled sadly. She used to say that horses were honest creatures. They'd never lie to you or pretend to be something they weren't. Unlike people. She paused. When she died, my father changed. He'd always been hard, but he got worse. Started drinking. Started seeing me as a burden instead of a daughter. How old were you when he sold you? 15, Lily said, her voice flat. Sold me to a farmer twice his age. Said he needed the money for debts. The farmer was cruel. Worked me like a mule and hit me when I talked back. I ran away after 6 months, lived on the streets for a while. Got picked up by the law and ended up at that auction house. James felt anger rise in his chest. Not at Lily, but at the world that had treated her this way. You've been through hell. We all have our hells, Lily said, looking at him. Yours was losing the people you loved. Mine was never having anyone love me in the first place. That's not true anymore, James said before he could stop himself. Lily's eyes widened. What? James realized what he'd said and felt his face get hot. I mean, you have people here who care about you. Tommy thinks you're wonderful. The horses clearly love you. And He trailed off, not quite ready to finish that sentence. And you? Lily prompted, her voice soft. And I care about what happens to you. James finished. A lot, actually. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling between them. Finally, Lily said, I care about what happens to you too. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even close. But it was a start. and they both knew it. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. James taught Lily how to ride better, how to rope cattle, how to manage the ranch books. Lily taught James how to really see the animals, how to understand their language, how to work with them instead of against them. The ranch hands noticed the change too. Lily was no longer the cold, angry woman who'd arrived months ago. She joked with Tommy, helped fix equipment, and even started cooking occasionally. Her biscuits became famous among the men, light and flaky and better than anything they'd had in years. One night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Lily and James sat on the porch watching the stars. They'd fallen into this habit, these late-night talks where they shared things they couldn't say in daylight. "Tell me about Beth," Lily said suddenly. "Your daughter. You never talk about her." James was quiet for so long that Lily thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said she was 2 years old. Had Catherine's blonde hair and my stubborn streak. She loved horses, just like you. Would sit by the fence for hours watching them. His voice cracked. She got sick first. Catherine was taking care of her day and night, barely sleeping. Then Catherine got sick too, and they faded away so fast. I couldn't stop it. Couldn't save either of them. Lily reached over and took his hand. It was the first time she'd initiated physical contact. "It wasn't your fault." "I know that up here," James tapped his head. "But knowing and feeling are different things." "Yeah," Lily agreed. "They really are." They sat there holding hands, looking at the stars, two broken people finding comfort in each other's brokenness. A few days later, James's best friend Robert came to visit. He was a rancher from the next county over, a good man with a quick laugh and easy manner. He'd known James since they'd first come west together 15 years ago. Robert took one look at James and Lily together and pulled James aside. "Brother, we need to talk." They went out to the barn. Robert crossed his arms and looked at James seriously. "What are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "With Lily, that girl. Everyone's talking about it. You bought her at an auction and now she's living here. And you two are," he gestured vaguely, "whatever you're doing." "We're friends," James said defensively. "Friends," Robert repeated skeptically. "James, I see how you look at her. And I see how she looks at you. This isn't just friendship anymore." James leaned against a stall door. "I don't know what it is," he admitted. "I didn't plan this. I just wanted to help her. But now you're falling for her," Robert finished. "Maybe," James said quietly. "Is that so wrong?" "It's not wrong," Robert said. "But it's complicated. She came here because she had no choice. How do you know what she feels is real and not just gratitude? Or safety?" James hadn't thought about that, and the question bothered him deeply. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Robert had said. Was Lily only here because she felt she had nowhere else to go? Was her growing affection just a survival instinct? The next morning he found her in the stable with Midnight. The black mare now ate from Lily's hand and let her brush her coat. It had taken months of patient work, but Midnight trusted Lily completely now. "Lily, can we talk?" She looked up, immediately sensing something was wrong. "What is it?" "I need to know something," James said. "And I need you to be completely honest with me." "All right, why are you still here?" James asked. "Is it because you want to be? Or because you don't think you have anywhere else to go?" Lily set down the brush. "What brought this on?" "Just answer the question, please." Lily was quiet for a long moment. "You want honesty? Fine. At first I stayed because I was tired of running. This place was safe, and I didn't have the energy to start over again somewhere new." James felt his heart sink, but Lily wasn't finished. "But that changed," she continued. "Somewhere along the way I stopped staying because this was safe and started staying because this felt like home. Because you make me feel like a person, not a possession. Because when I wake up in the morning I actually want to see your face." She looked at him directly. "I'm here because I choose to be here, James. Every single day I choose you." James felt like he couldn't breathe. "I choose you too," he said. "Every day." They stood there in the stable, surrounded by the warm smell of horses and hay, and something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but the promise of it, the possibility. Lily smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "So what do we do now?" "I guess we keep choosing each other," James said, "and see where it leads." "I'd like that," Lily said softly. James reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. Lily didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into his touch. They were both still healing, still figuring out how to trust and be trusted. But they were doing it together. And that made all the difference. Outside the stable, the sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was a new day, full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, both James and Lily were ready to face it, not as owner and property, not even as husband and wife, but as two people who'd found something precious in each other, two people who were learning, day by day, what it meant to choose love instead of loneliness. 3 months had passed since that conversation in the stable, and life on the ranch had settled into something beautiful. Lily woke each morning feeling lighter than she ever had. She'd started taking real pride in the ranch, helping James with decisions about the cattle, the land, the horses. The men respected her now, not just because she was with James, but because she'd earned it through hard work and skill. She and James had grown closer, but they were taking things slow. Holding hands while watching sunsets, sitting close by the fire, small touches that meant everything. Neither wanted to rush into something that could break what they'd built. Then one morning in early autumn, everything changed. Lily was in the kitchen making breakfast when she heard horses approaching fast. She looked out the window and saw an expensive carriage pulling up, followed by 2 men on horseback. The carriage was fancy, the kind rich people from back east used. It looked completely out of place on the dusty ranch. James came out of the barn, wiping his hands on his pants. Lily watched as a well-dressed man stepped out of the carriage. He was younger than James, maybe by 5 years, with slicked back hair and a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Even from the window, Lily could see James's body language change. His shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened. Whoever this man was, James wasn't happy to see him. She went to the door and stepped out onto the porch, wanting to be nearby if James needed her. "William," James said coldly, "what are you doing here? Is that any way to greet your brother?" The man replied, smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Brother." Lily felt her stomach drop. James had mentioned he had a brother back east, but said they didn't talk anymore. Now she understood why. William looked around the ranch with barely concealed disdain. "Still living in this wilderness, I see. Mother would be so disappointed." "Mother's been dead for 10 years, James said flatly. "What do you want, William?" William's eyes landed on Lily standing on the porch. His gaze traveled up and down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. "Ah, this must be the famous purchase. The wild girl everyone's talking about. News travels fast, even to Boston." "Her name is Lily," James said, his voice dangerously quiet. "And you'll speak to her with respect or you'll leave." "Respect?" William laughed. "James, she's not your wife. This whole arrangement is illegal and frankly embarrassing to the family name." "I don't care about the family name," James said. "I haven't cared about it since I left Boston. Now tell me why you're here or get back in that fancy carriage and leave." William reached into his coat and pulled out a packet of papers. "I'm here because Father's estate has finally been settled. As the eldest son, you inherit the bulk of it. But there are conditions. I don't want anything from his estate. Don't be stupid, James, it's a fortune. But according to Father's will, you can only claim it if you're respectably married within 6 months of his death. Father died 4 months ago." James went very still. And this arrangement with your little pet here doesn't count," William said. "I've brought papers that dissolve whatever agreement you made with her. I've also brought an introduction to the daughter of the Whitmore family. Very respectable, very wealthy. She's agreed to marry you. All you have to do is sign these papers, send the girl away, and return to Boston with me. You'll be rich, James. Richer than you ever dreamed. You can leave this dusty nowhere behind forever." Lily felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She couldn't breathe, of course. Of course this was too good to be true. Of course there would be a reason for James to leave her behind. James looked at the papers, then at William, then back at the papers. He was quiet for a long time. "Too long, James," William prompted. "This is everything you could want. Money, status, a proper wife. All you have to do is choose." Lily couldn't watch anymore. She turned and went back into the house. Her vision blurry with tears she refused to let fall. She'd been such a fool. She'd let herself believe in something good, let herself hope, and now it was all falling apart. She went upstairs to her room and started throwing her few belongings into a bag. She wouldn't wait around to be sent away. She'd leave on her own terms, with whatever dignity she had left. She heard footsteps on the stairs and knew it was James. She didn't turn around, just kept packing. Lily. Wait, don't, she said, her voice shaking. Just don't, I understand. You have a chance at real money, a real life. I was always temporary anyway, right? Just something to fill the emptiness until something better came along. That's not true, isn't it? She finally turned to face him, and she was angry now. Anger was better than hurt. You're out there right now, thinking about it, weighing your options, deciding if I'm worth giving up a fortune for. I'm not thinking about it, James said firmly. There's nothing to think about. Then why are you up here instead of telling your brother to leave? Because I wanted to talk to you first, James said. I wanted you to hear what I'm going to tell him, but I needed you to know something first. What? Lily asked, her voice breaking despite her best efforts. James crossed the room and took her hands. I love you, Lily. I'm in love with you. I don't care about my father's money. I don't care about the family name or Boston society or any of it. I care about you. I choose you. Lily stared at him, hardly daring to believe. You're serious. Completely serious, James said. I should have told you sooner, but I was scared. Scared you didn't feel the same way. Scared I'd push too hard and you'd leave. You love me? Lily repeated like she needed to hear it again to make it real. I love you, James confirmed. The question is, do you love me? Lily felt tears running down her face now, but they weren't sad tears. Yes, you idiot. I love you. I've loved you for months. I was just too scared to say it. James pulled her into his arms and she let him, burying her face in his chest. They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other. So what do? Lily asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. We go down there together, James said, and I tell William exactly what he can do with his papers and his arranged marriage. They walked downstairs hand in hand. William was waiting in the living room, looking impatient. He stood up when they entered. So, have you come to your senses? William asked. I have, James said. And the answer is no. William blinked. No? No to the inheritance? No to your papers? No to going back to Boston? No to all of it? Don't be ridiculous, James. Think about what you're giving up. I have thought about it, James said, and I'd rather have a life here with Lily than all the money in the world without her. She's not a purchase or a pet or a convenience. She's the woman I love, and I'm not giving her up for anything or anyone. William looked between them, disbelief on his face. You'd throw away a fortune for her? For some wild girl from a bride auction? Her name is Lily, James repeated, his voice hard. And yes, I would. In fact, I am. William's face turned red. You're a fool, James. You always were too sentimental. Father was right about you. Father was wrong about a lot of things, James said. Now get out of my house, and don't come back. William snatched up his papers. Fine, throw your life away. See if I care. But don't come crawling to me when this all falls apart. He looked at Lily with contempt. Women like her always show their true colors eventually. Get out, James said again, his voice dangerous now. William stormed out, slamming the door behind him. They heard the carriage pull away a few minutes later, the sound of wheels fading into the distance. James let out a long breath and turned to Lily. Well, that's that. Lily was trembling. You really chose me. You gave up a fortune. I didn't give up anything, James said, cupping her face in his hands. I kept everything that matters. You think money could make me happier than waking up and seeing your face every morning? You think status could mean more than the way you laugh at my terrible jokes? You think I'd trade what we have for some arranged marriage with a stranger? But what if you regret it? Lily asked. What if someday you look at me and wish you'd made the other choice? I won't, James said firmly. Lily, I spent 5 years alone in this house, surrounded by empty rooms and memories. I had money then, had this whole ranch, had respect from everyone in the territory. And I was miserable. Then you came into my life, angry and wild and refusing to be broken, and you made me feel alive again. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. You gave me hope. He wiped away her tears with his thumbs. That's worth more than all the money in the world. Lily threw her arms around his neck. I love you, she said. I love you so much it scares me. I know, James said, holding her tight. Love is terrifying, but it's also the best thing we've got. They stood there in the middle of the living room holding each other, and Lily felt something she'd never felt before. Safe. Truly safe. Not because she was hiding or running or protected by walls, but because she was loved, chosen, valued for exactly who she was. So what happens now? She asked. James pulled back to look at her. Now we build a life together. A real one. Not because we have to, but because we want to. I want that, Lily said. I want all of it. With you. Then that's what we'll have, James promised. Later that evening, after they'd told the ranch hands what happened and endured Tommy's enthusiastic congratulations, Lily and James sat on the porch watching the sunset. For 3 perfect weeks after William left, life felt like a dream. James and Lily were inseparable, working side by side during the day and sitting close by the fire at night. They talked about the future, about making their arrangement official, about building a real life together. Then one morning, Lily woke up and James wasn't there. She found a note on the kitchen table in his handwriting. Had to ride out early to check on the northern fence. Back by evening. Love, Jay. Lily smiled at the note, touching the word love with her finger. She made coffee and breakfast, humming to herself. She'd never been the humming type before. But happiness did strange things to a person. She was washing dishes when she heard horses approaching. Thinking James had returned early, she dried her hands and went to the door with a smile. The smile died when she saw who it was. 3 men on horseback, and she recognized one of them immediately. Frank Henderson, the second man who'd bought her at auction. The one she'd hit with a frying pan. The one whose brothers had called her crazy and returned her. Her heart started racing. She stepped back into the house and grabbed the rifle James kept by the door. Her hands were shaking, but she managed to load it. Frank and his men dismounted. He looked older than she remembered, meaner. There was a scar on his forehead that hadn't been there before. From the frying pan, she realized. Well, well, Frank called out, if it isn't my runaway bride. Heard you found yourself a rich rancher. Lucky girl. Get off this property, Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. You're not welcome here. That's no way to talk to your husband, Frank said, climbing the porch steps. We were never properly divorced, you know, which means legally you still belong to me. I don't belong to anyone, Lily said, raising the rifle. Frank stopped, but he was smiling. You gonna shoot me, girl? Just like you nearly killed me last time? My brothers might have let you go then, but not this time. What do you want? Lily demanded. What's mine, Frank said simply. Heard your new man turned down a fortune to keep you. Must mean you're worth something after all. So here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna come with me nice and quiet, and I'm gonna sell you to someone who'll pay good money. Split it with my brothers here. Everyone wins. Except me, Lily said. You don't count, Frank replied, his smile fading. Your property. Always were, always will be. No, Lily said firmly. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then we'll take you by force, Frank said, nodding to his brothers. They started moving toward the porch. Lily fired the rifle into the air. The sound was deafening and the men stopped. The next shot won't be in the air, Lily warned, but her hands were shaking badly now. She'd never actually shot anyone before. Frank saw her hesitation and his smile returned. You won't do it, he said. You're all bark and no bite. Always were. He lunged forward faster than she expected. He grabbed the rifle barrel and they struggled. Lily held on with all her strength, but Frank was bigger and stronger. He wrenched the rifle away and tossed it aside. Got you now, he growled, grabbing her arm. Lily did what she'd learned to do years ago. She fought. She kicked, scratched, bit, screamed. She fought like her life depended on it because it did. One of Frank's brothers grabbed her other arm. Together they started dragging her toward the horses. Lily fought harder, pure panic giving her strength. She managed to break free for a moment and ran. She didn't know where she was going, just away. But Frank caught her, tackling her to the ground. Her head hit hard, and stars exploded in her vision. Stupid girl, Frank said, flipping her over. Should have come quietly. Through her dazed vision, Lily saw him raise his fist. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. This was it. This was how it ended. Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. The thunder of a horse at full gallop and James's voice roaring with rage. Get away from her. Frank looked up just in time to see James leap off his still-moving horse and crash into him. They went down in a tangle of limbs, James landing. The morning sun streamed through the window, warm and golden. Lily woke up still wrapped in James's arms. He was already awake, watching her with soft eyes. Morning, she said, her voice rough from sleep. Morning, James replied. How's your head? Lily touched the bandage gently. Sore, but I'll live. Are we really getting married today? If you haven't changed your mind, James said. Not a chance, Lily smiled. But we should probably get up. We have a wedding to plan, James groaned. Can't we just stay here forever? Tempting, but no. They got up and went downstairs. Tommy was already in the kitchen, making coffee. He took one look at them coming down together and grinned like a fool. Morning, boss. Morning, Lily. Heard you two are getting hitched today. News travels fast, James said, but he was smiling. In a ranch this size, everything travels fast, Tommy laughed. The boys and I already got started. We're cleaning up the barn for the ceremony. And Mrs. Chen from town is bringing flowers. She was real excited when I rode in early this morning to tell her. Lily felt warmth spread through her chest. You did all that already? Course we did, Tommy said. You're family now, Lily, both of you are. We take care of family. The rest of the morning was a beautiful chaos. The ranch hands decorated the barn with wildflowers and ribbons. Mrs. Chen arrived with her daughters, bringing not just flowers but also a beautiful white dress she'd been saving. It was my daughter's, Mrs. Chen said, holding it out to Lily. But she moved to California and told me to give it to someone who needed it. I think that's you. Lily took the dress with shaking hands. It was simple but lovely, with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. I can't accept this. It's too much. Nonsense, Mrs. Chen said firmly. Every bride deserves a beautiful dress. Now go try it on. The dress fit perfectly, like it was made for her. When Lily looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because of the dress, but because of the light in her eyes, the happiness on her face. She looked like someone who'd found where she belonged. Mrs. Chen's daughters helped with her hair, braiding it with small white flowers. When they were done, even Lily had to admit she looked beautiful. James is going to lose his mind when he sees you, one of the daughters giggled. Downstairs, James was having his own transformation. The ranch hands had made him put on his best suit and actually comb his hair properly. Robert had arrived that morning, having ridden hard when he got Tommy's message. Can't believe you're actually doing this, Robert said, helping James with his tie. Why? You told me I was falling for her months ago. I know, but I didn't think you'd actually marry her so quickly. When you know, James said simply. Why wait? Robert clapped him on the shoulder. You're a good man, James, and she's a good woman. You two deserve each other. By late afternoon, everything was ready. The barn had been transformed. Sunlight streamed through the open doors, illuminating the flowers and ribbons. Chairs had been set up, and people from neighboring ranches had arrived. Word had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to witness this unusual wedding. James stood at the front with Robert beside him as his best man. His hands were sweating, his heart pounding. Then the music started, just Tommy on a fiddle playing a simple tune. Lily appeared in the doorway and James forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, not just pretty but radiant, glowing with happiness. She walked toward him slowly, her eyes locked on his, a smile playing at her lips. When she reached him, he took her hands. You're stunning, he whispered. You don't look so bad yourself, Lily whispered back. The minister cleared his throat. He was an old man from town who'd known James for years. Dearly beloved, he began, but then he paused. Actually, before we start the traditional ceremony, I believe the couple has something they'd like to say. James and Lily had talked about this the night before. They didn't want a standard ceremony with promises they hadn't written themselves. James went first, his voice steady despite his nerves. Lily, when I first saw you on that auction platform, I saw someone who refused to be broken. Someone fierce and wild and free. I didn't know then that you'd change my whole life. You brought light back into my dark house. You made me remember what it felt like to hope, to laugh, to live instead of just exist. His voice cracked slightly. I promise to never try to tame you or cage you or change who you are. I promise to give you freedom to choose every single day, including the freedom to leave if you ever want to. I promise to love you not despite your wildness, but because of it. You are the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful that you chose me. Lily's eyes were shining with tears. She took a breath and began her own vows. James, I spent most of my life being told I was too much, too wild, too stubborn, too difficult. I believed them. I thought there was something wrong with me, something that needed to be fixed or broken or beaten out. Then you looked at me and saw something different. You saw someone worth saving, worth choosing, worth loving exactly as they are. A tear rolled down her cheek. You gave me the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. You gave me the freedom to choose, and I choose you, James. I choose you not because I have to, not because I need to, but because my heart wants to. You are the kindest, most patient, most honorable man I've ever known. I promise to stand beside you, to work with you, to build a life with you. I promise to be honest even when it's hard, and I promise to choose you every single day for the rest of my life. There wasn't a dry eye in the barn. Even the tough ranch hands were wiping at their faces. The minister smiled. I've married a lot of couples in my time, but I've never heard vows more true than these. By the power vested in me and with the blessing of everyone here, I now pronounce you husband and wife. James, you may kiss your bride. James cupped Lily's face gently and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and perfect, and when they pulled apart, both were smiling so wide it hurt. The barn erupted in cheers and applause. Tommy's fiddle started up again, playing a lively tune. Tables were brought out with food that the neighboring ranchers had brought. Someone produced a bottle of whiskey, and toasts were made. As the sun set and lanterns were lit, James and Lily had their first dance as husband and wife. They weren't very good at it, stumbling over each other's feet and laughing, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered except this moment, this happiness, this choice they'd made. Happy? James asked as they swayed to the music. Happier than I knew was possible, Lily replied honestly. Me too, James said. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for asking. Later, when the party had died down and the guests had left, James and Lily stood on the porch of their house, looking out at the ranch. The stars were brilliant overhead, millions of them scattered across the black sky. This is real, right? Lily asked. I'm not dreaming. If you are, then I'm having the same dream, James said, pulling her close. I never thought I'd have this, Lily admitted. A home, a family, someone who loves me. You have all of that now, James said. For as long as you want it. Forever then, Lily said. I want it forever. The months that followed were the happiest of both their lives. Lily took on more responsibility in the ranch, and her ideas helped make it more profitable. She started a program breeding and training horses using her gentle methods. Word spread and people came from all over to buy horses trained by the woman who could tame anything. James watched her flourish with pride. She was no longer the angry, scared girl he'd met at the auction. She was confident, happy, fully herself. And he fell more in love with her every single day. One evening, about 6 months after their wedding, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Lily said, I have something to tell you. James looked at her, concerned by her serious tone. What is it? Lily took his hand and placed it on her stomach. We're going to have a baby. James's eyes went wide. A baby, really? Really, Lily confirmed, smiling nervously. Are you happy? James let out a whoop of joy and lifted her up, spinning her around. Happy? I'm thrilled. We're having a baby. They laughed and cried and held each other as the sun painted the sky in brilliant colors. A new life was beginning, born from the love between a rancher and a wild girl who'd found each other against all odds. The baby, a daughter, was born in the spring. They named her Catherine Beth, after James's first wife and daughter. Lily had suggested it, wanting to honor the people who'd come before. Little Catherine had her mother's dark hair and her father's kind eyes. She was wild and fearless, climbing everything she could reach and befriending every animal on the ranch. Lily and James watched her grow with wonder and joy. Years passed. The ranch prospered. More children came, 2 boys who were just as wild as their sister. The house that had once been so empty and quiet was now filled with laughter and noise and life. Lily never forgot where she came from or what she'd survived. She used her story to help other women in similar situations, quietly providing sanctuary for those who needed to escape bad situations. The ranch became known as a safe place where women could find work and a new start. James supported her fully, proud of the woman his wife had become. She was still wild, still fierce, still refusing to be tamed. But now her wildness was channeled into protecting others, into building something good.